Hello and welcome to Macroeconomics Module 11, Lecture 3. So the first two lectures in this module were about international trade. This one is about international finance. What is the relationship of international finance to international trade? Well, in our previous discussions of trading rice and wheat between Japan and the US, we described it as if it was being done by barter, that the two countries agreed to trade this much wheat for this much rice. In almost all circumstances, that's not how it really happens. Countries don't directly trade wheat for rice any more than when you go to Albertsons that you barter and trade a stereo system for a mop. It's that you are buying or selling with money. And it's the same thing that happens in international trade. And it's not even that the countries are doing the buying and the selling, meaning the countries' governments are doing the buying and the selling. It is usually, at least in trade between market countries, the individual citizens or businesses in the country are buying or selling with citizens or businesses in the other country. Now, occasionally, especially among command economies, countries would make deals. We will send you so much wheat in return for so much oil. But in market economies, that's not usually how it's done. And this is just like when we say California gets its cars from Michigan, Detroit. What we mean is that citizens of California, they go and buy a car with money from a car lot that is a business that has bought the car from Ford. So the governor of California hasn't made a deal with the governor of Michigan to trade oranges for cars. It's that you as a Californian want to buy a car, and that car was made in Michigan, and there's a business that has transported the car from Michigan to California and will sell it to you. Now here is a complicating factor that we do not have in normal business transactions, at least domestic business transactions. We've never had to worry that California and Michigan use different money. So what are they going to buy and sell in? But of course, countries do use different monies. Japan uses the yen, the US uses the dollar, Great Britain uses the pound, a lot of the European countries use the euro. And that adds a complication. In fact, to get rid of that complication is one of the reasons that the individual countries in Europe gave up their individual monies to all use the euro, so that just like all the states in the United States using the dollar makes it easy to buy and sell from Japan to Arizona, from California to Arizona. It becomes a lot easier to buy and sell between Germany and France when they're both using the same money. But of course, most countries don't have that relationship. And that's why if you take a trip to another country, if you get off your plane in Japan or in England, probably one of the very first things you see right after you clear customs, you see a business like you see here, currency exchange. Because you're coming from the United States, your wallet is full of dollars. But stores in Japan won't take dollars, and you know that, and the taxi cab that's going to drive you to the airport won't take dollars. So you have to get hold of that country's money. And so in international airports, there'll always be a currency exchange that you can come and trade in your money for that country's money. There are occasions, like if you're in an international port, like Singapore is an interesting case. Singapore is its own country, basically, but it's just a port city, and it's a huge international port. And so they're used to buying and selling from all sorts of different countries. So stores in Singapore probably are a lot of them are going to be they will take dollars. But stores in Japan will not take dollars. And stores in America, homework assignment for which you'll get no credit, and I'll never check that you did it. I want you to go into Albertsons and try to buy food with Japanese money, the Japanese yen, and see how it goes. So in most parts of the world, that's how it is if you try to buy with dollars. And there are prices, which we call exchange rates, between these international currencies. So here are the rates. This is for Great Britain. You'll notice in this list of countries that is most of the important countries that you would do for international trading. The one country that is sort of obviously missing is Great Britain or England, and that's because this is the exchange rate for the English pound. So they're not going to put up Great Britain because the exchange rate would just be 1-to-1. But it's saying, okay, United States, if you want to buy a British pound, you have to pay $1.83, actually $1.63. On the other hand, if you want to buy dollars, then for a pound you can get $1.46. That's quite a spread there, and that's of course where the profit comes from. That they don't have the same exchange rate whether you're doing dollars for pounds or pounds for dollars. And you see, if you want money, you should get into the foreign exchange business. At least if you're one that is at the airport, you can probably have a pretty good profit for yourself. Just like the one gas station that is, off the freeway exit, the only gas station for 40 miles around, you can charge a pretty high price. So there are going to be people who have to convert their money immediately because they got to pay for the cab to the hotel room. And then they're willing to pay this nice high spread. What you probably want to do is wait till you get into the city and do most of your trading for currency there, because you have competing foreign exchange offices next to each other. It's more like getting gas from 4 gas stations on each corner. And you don't have to have a foreign exchange there. Hotels would do it. When I was in China, when we were sort of Chinese money, the hotel. You go to the check-in stand of the hotel, and they would exchange. They would take dollars and give you Chinese currency back. When I was in Singapore, I talked about it being so international. People would come up on the street, and they just say, "You want Singapore money, or do you want dollars? I'll do the trade." And it was also in Singapore that a lot of the stores would be willing to be paid in dollars. So sometimes it's easy to find a place that you can exchange currency, and then sometimes it's not so easy. And like most things, when it's not so easy to find competitors, the business will try to make money off of that situation. Now, exchange rates can be quoted in either direction, and then one of those exchange rates will be the reciprocal or the inverse of the other. So suppose the exchange rate right now is such that it takes a US dollar can buy 125 Japanese yen. Now, how are we going to describe this situation? We can describe it in either of 2 ways, and they are both perfectly mathematically accurate. It's just a matter of convenience, which one you're going to use. We could say the exchange rate is 125 yen per dollar, so that a dollar buys 125 yen, or $0.008 per yen. So that with a yen you can buy not even a full penny, but 0.008 of a dollar. Obviously you would not use 1 yen to buy 0.00, that's 0.8 of a cent, but then 100 yen could buy 80 cents. Probably you're not doing that small a trade either. So you can flip it and talk about yen per dollar or dollar per yen. And as these exchange rates change, then one country's currency can get more powerful, more valuable, or less powerful. When the dollar gains in value, it means you can get more yen. Instead of 125 yen for a dollar, you can get 150 yen for a dollar. We would say the dollar has appreciated. Currencies appreciate. If you've heard that term, currencies appreciating, the dollar appreciates. What that means is compared to other countries' currencies, we can buy more of their currency with the dollar. The dollar has become more valuable. Just like domestically, if the dollar becomes more valuable, you can get more gumballs with a dollar than before. And then the other way it can go is you get less Japanese yen for your dollar. And that we use the phrase depreciated. So the dollar can buy more yen, the dollar has appreciated. The dollar can buy less yen, it's less valuable, the dollar has depreciated. And because these currencies are their value is relative to each other. What's always going to be true is if the dollar has appreciated compared to the yen has depreciated compared to the dollar. Because if a dollar used to get you 125 yen, now it gets you 150 yen. That means you used to be able to get a dollar for 125 yen. Now it takes 150 yen to get a dollar. The yen has depreciated. And then if the dollar depreciates, the yen must appreciate. The yen has become more valuable compared to the dollar when the dollar has become less valuable compared to the yen. Now, what determines these exchange rates? Why should the exchange rate be 125 yen equals $1? Well, these are prices, and so, like all prices, they are determined by supply and demand if the government lets them be. The government doesn't have to let them be determined by supply and demand, just like the government could put price controls on, well, on anything. Like New York apartments, the government can put price controls on the value of their currency compared to other currencies. And actually, this was the common thing from the end of World War II until the 1970s. Most of the big countries, US, Germany, England, had fixed exchange rates with each other. Now, a fixed exchange rate is where the government says that it will take $2 to equal £1. So that with a pound you can buy $2. For a long time, the pound and the dollar were fixed at an exchange rate of 2.12 to 1. So it took $2.12 to buy 1 pound, and 1 pound could get you $2.12. And England and the United States had agreed on that. Both governments agreed that would be the exchange rate, and they both agreed to act to make sure that exchange rate stayed where it was. Now, what did they have to do to make sure that exchange rate stayed where it was? We'll talk about that next module, or there is no next module. There's good news, but there is a next lecture, and we'll talk about that next lecture. Basically, it means the governments have to be willing to buy and sell the currencies relative to each other at that fixed rate. Usually this is called a fixed exchange rate. I'll note the textbook in its vocabulary at the end of the chapter calls this a hard peg, but more commonly you hear it a fixed exchange rate. And from the World War II until the 70s, this was the main way. It broke down in the 70s for reasons we'll talk about next lecture. And then, so from the 1970s till now, we have had floating exchange rates. And floating exchange rates are where the government just lets the market, the supply and demand for currencies, determine what the exchange rate is. Sometimes the government tries to get involved and manipulate the exchange rate. That's called a dirty float, where it's floating, but the government tries to put its finger on the scale and make the value appreciate or depreciate. Now, what causes, I say price, the exchange rate, or the price of one money in terms of another, is based on supply and demand for that country's money. But what causes some demand for other people's money? And it's mostly imports or exports. If you go to Japan, you have to pay in Japanese money, so you go to one of those exchange offices once you get off the plane. But if you're in the U.S. and you're buying from Japan, you're not going to Japan, but you're buying a shipload of cars from Japan, that Japanese company wants to be paid in Japanese money. So even though you're in the U.S., you got to get Japanese money somehow. So you go to the foreign exchange office or the bank or wherever you think you can get it cheapest, and you buy Japanese yen to pay the Japanese people that you're buying from. So if you're a Japanese importer with yen buying from U.S. companies, you have to take your yen and buy dollars to pay off the U.S. companies in dollars. If you're a U.S. importer and you have dollars, you need to trade your dollars in for yen so you can pay the Japanese companies. So you see what's happening here. The U.S. importers have dollars, they want yen. The Japanese companies have yen and want dollars. What they need to do is get together and trade yen for dollars. And that's what is happening in the international exchange market. Now, the companies don't usually exchange dollars for yen directly, they go through a middleman. Right, that would be the international exchange business. What this means is that the price of buying something from Japan doesn't depend just on how expensive it is in Japan, but what the exchange rate is. The higher the price or value of the yen, the more expensive it is to buy exports from Japan. Let's say that there's a table in Japan that costs 20,000 yen in Japanese stores. If you want to buy that table and import it into the US, if the exchange rate between yen and dollars is 100 yen to a dollar, so you ask, so how many dollars does it take to buy 20,000 yen? The answer is $200. So that it will cost $200 to buy that 20,000 yen table. However, if the exchange rate is 200 yen to a dollar instead of 100 yen to a dollar, notice here the dollar is stronger, it's appreciated, you can get more yen for the dollar, or the yen has depreciated because it takes more yen to buy a dollar, that now to get 20,000 yen only costs $100. So does a 20,000 yen table cost $100 or $200? Depends on the exchange rate. And the more valuable the dollar is compared to the yen, the cheaper it is to buy that table and import it. So exchange rates going up and down makes foreign goods become cheaper and more expensive. The stronger the dollar is, the cheaper it is to buy from other countries. The weaker the dollar is, the more expensive it is to buy from other countries. And this creates a bit of a self-correcting mechanism that suppose nobody outside Japan wanted to buy anything from Japan. So if nobody's buying from Japan, nobody wants to buy the yen. They don't need to if they're not paying Japanese companies. Then the yen is in surplus. There's a bunch of yen that people in Japan want to trade in for dollars, but there's no takers. And what happens when there's a surplus of yen? Same thing that happens when there's a surplus of anything. The price falls or the yen depreciates. It becomes cheaper to buy yen, which means it becomes cheaper to buy tables from Japan, which means people start buying tables from Japan, and now suddenly Japan can sell to the outside world. So we're almost up to our 18 minutes here, so I'm going to stop here and we'll pick up at this place next lecture and talk a bit more about what determines the exchange rate between one country and another and what can make it change. So I'll see you for that, or at least you'll hear me for that. Until then, take care.